Operation Iraqi Freedom. Reports of secret surrender talks as U.S. bombs hit Baghdad. Key Saddam control centers on fire. Also, the first fierce fighting on the ground. The hunt for Saddam. Saddam Hussein and his son still are the top targets. Where are they tonight? The war on terror. The FBI eager to find this man. They say he may be a top al-Qaeda terrorist in the U.S. planning a devastating attack. And the home front. America at war. For and against military action on edge.
Target Iraq. This is a special edition of NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Good evening. In Baghdad, it is now early Friday morning, and tonight, the leaders of the elite Republican Guard are said to be in secret contact with U.S. officials discussing possible surrender terms. The Iraqi capital city has been the target of 2 surgical strikes against buildings and bunkers where the Iraqi leadership, including Saddam Hussein, lives and works. And in the south, the ground war is underway with a lot of heavy action out of the range of television cameras. Saddam Hussein appears to have survived the first wave, but in this country, Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld today spoke to the Iraqi military, telling them not to die for Saddam and not to carry out his orders. We're covering all the angles tonight, including the still strong possibility of chemical attacks. And we're going to begin at the Pentagon with NBC Jim Miklashevsky now. Jim, what's the story on this possible discussion of surrender terms?
Well, Tom, Pentagon officials report that after only 2 days of airstrikes, there are serious cracks in the Iraqi regime that have led to secret surrender talks with some senior Iraqi military leaders, including some of those from Saddam Hussein's most trusted military force, the secret Republican Guards. Now, Pentagon officials also say these talks have actually been underway for months, but now that the war has started, some of them may now be pushed closer to not only giving up themselves, but giving up Saddam Hussein. Tom?
All right, Jim, now take us through the military action today that was directed at Baghdad and the southern targets in Iraq.
Well, the Pentagon's campaign was originally dubbed Shock and Awe, but could be called today Shock and Pause, as the U.S. military steps back to assess just how far they might have to go to reach their ultimate objective, and that's to drive out Saddam Hussein. For the second night running, air raid sirens wailed over Baghdad. The Iraqi capital again came under a brief but intense attack. Lasting only 10 minutes, dozens of American bombs and missiles rained down on only a handful of Iraqi leadership targets. Not exactly the kind of devastating bombing first planned in the Pentagon's campaign of shock and awe. Instead, it's very tightly focused on driving out Saddam Hussein.
The days of the Saddam Hussein regime are numbered.
After targeting Saddam Hussein himself the night before, today's strikes were aimed at the heart of Saddam's regime, his special security organization run by his son Qusay, and the compound of his deputy prime minister Tariq Aziz.
It looks like as this is going to unfold, it's going to be a psychological drip, drip, drip on the Iraqi regime.
Simultaneously today, U.S. Army artillery and rockets in Kuwait pound Iraqi troops across the border. Thousands of American ground forces charged into Iraq as heavily armed Apache attack helicopters give them cover. U.S. and British troops quickly take the Iraqi port city of Qasr and advance in Iraqi troops outside Basra. But the Pentagon's campaign is not aimed at wiping out the Iraqi military. In fact, Defense Secretary Rumsfeld revealed today the U.S. is talking directly to Iraqi military leaders, even those in the Special Republican Guards, and suggested they could avoid all-out war if they took out Saddam Hussein themselves.
The Iraqi soldiers and officers must ask themselves whether they want to die fighting for a doomed regime, or do they want to survive?
But tonight, both sides are still at war. U.S. military officials report Iraqi troops have now set fire to at least 5 oil wells in the Ramallah oil fields in the south, while U.S. Special Forces have successfully seized and secured a number of Iraqi oil platforms out in the Persian Gulf. And tonight, a senior Pentagon official tells NBC News that it appears last night's airstrikes against one of Saddam Hussein's bunker may have killed several senior leaders in the Iraqi regime. And if it didn't kill Saddam Hussein, left him badly shaken. Tom?
Thanks very much, NBC's Jim Miklaszewski tonight at the Pentagon. As for Baghdad tonight, it is like a city hunched over, waiting for the next hit. It's been through worse bombings before, but this is just the beginning, and so far the targets have been very specific, including one of Saddam Hussein's family homes. Peter Arnett of National Geographic Explorer and NBC News joins us now from Baghdad. Peter, bring us up to date on the scene there now at this hour.
Well, Tom, I'm looking across a very brightly lit Baghdad. All the street lights are on. I'm looking across at several of President Saddam Hussein's glittering palaces, better lit than any other buildings in town. You would wonder where he is. I'm sure he's not in any of those palaces because they were apparently targeted for some point or another of attack by U.S. forces. In terms of the other destruction in the city, 9 o'clock tonight, Baghdad time, one major air raid that took out at least 3 or 4 structures, including, as you said, the office building occupied by Qusay Hussein, who's the president's younger and favored son. Also, the Iraqis are saying that one of these airstrikes, we're not sure whether it was the early morning one or a later one, was aimed at the house of his wife, Sajida, where she and 3 daughters were occupying. They said at the time she was not there and the family survived. The Iraqis are also saying tonight that there was 1 civilian killed and several wounded in these series of attacks, but the news people haven't been able to, or haven't been taken to visit these injured people yet. Tom.
All right, thanks very much, Peter Arnett. We'll ask you to stand by there and keep us updated throughout the evening. For the troops on the ground, this has been a demanding and difficult day. Many of them, the Marines and the 3rd Infantry Division, are moving forward. Other units are waiting to see where they're needed, but as they wait, they are exposed to Saddam Hussein's missiles and possible chemical attacks. NBC's Dana Lewis tonight with the 101st Airborne. Dana, you're under alert there, I gather, at the moment.
I am, Tom. Roller coaster day for troops out here in the desert. The near constant whine of sirens forcing us to don these masks, come out to the bunkers as we are now. This siren just went off about 10 minutes ago, and we're sitting here waiting for an all clear or some indication as to what this was. Was it another missile or was it not? All of this fraying the nerves of young American soldiers.
12:45 Kuwaiti time, the alarm sounds at Camp New York. Soldiers from the 101st caught off guard. Still intense, they understand this is no drill. Incoming missiles, the first of the war. A bunker offers protection from explosions and shrapnel.
As you can see, all of these soldiers, they have now moved into the bunkers.
In chemical drills, soldiers often talk and joke in the bunker. Today, an eerie silence.
Is it unnerving for you?
Yeah, anytime you're going to get insecticide for people on you, it is. I mean, who wouldn't it be unnerving for?
28 minutes, we get the all-clear signal. No sign of chemical or biological agents. We can leave the bunker. Sergeant Ken Krause fought in the First Gulf War, lived in one of these chemical suits for a month. His job to train soldiers to stay safe, and today he prays he trained them well.
I've talked with a few of them that are truly nervous about all this, and I try to reassure them that I have tested a lot of this gear. It works.
Should I take these shoes off? Today he tells me to check my suit. A mix-up in serial numbers means some soldiers got 2 pants or 2 jackets instead of pants and a jacket. My suit checks out. 5:30, a warning the Iraqis will fire more missiles. First, soldiers are told helmets and body armor only. There are reports, and I don't know the exact basis for them, that there may be an incoming heavy barrage of missiles from Iraq, and that may happen within the next 15 to 20 minutes. Then the alarm sounds for gas masks. The entire base, hundreds of soldiers run for bunkers. And over the next hour, from daylight to dusk, we mask and unmask, do it all over again 3 times. Soldiers emerge exhausted, frayed nerves.
We just sit here and wait for the Scuds or whatever to come at us. And so it's just the nerve-wracking of waiting for something to happen.
Tonight, his fellow soldiers crowd around a TV monitor, straining to hear any news on units already fighting across the Iraqi border.
And Tom, in the last 2 hours, we have now had 3 of these attacks, 3 of these sirens go off. I can tell you that in the last 2, of course, we don't know the outcome of this one. In the last 2, they were confirmed missile launches from Iraq, and the missiles, we're told, landed harmlessly in the desert. No indication that there was any chemical or biological agents involved in those missiles. Back to you, Tom.
Thanks very much, NBC's Dana Lewis tonight with the 101st. Back in Washington, the Bush administration was hammering away on the message that the war against Iraq is truly a broad coalition of the willing. NBC's Campbell Brown joins me now from the White House. Campbell?
That's right, Tom. The president today trying to convince the world that he does have a broad coalition, that this is not just the U.S. and Great Britain acting alone. After private meetings this morning with his war council, the president spent yet another day working the phones, still selling reluctant allies on why military action is necessary. Meeting with his cabinet, he praised the troops overseas and thanked what the White House calls the coalition of the willing for backing the U.S.
Over 40 nations now support our efforts. We're grateful for their determination.
But privately, White House officials concede it's a list of countries giving token help. For example, the administration has long claimed Turkey a key member of the coalition. But Turkey's parliament only today voted to give the U.S. permission to use its airspace and nothing more. One official admitted, quote, "This is mostly about diplomacy." Meanwhile, the president today ordered the Treasury Department to confiscate Iraqi government assets, claiming they'd been stolen from the Iraqi people.
We are today directing a worldwide hunt for the blood money.
Each evening now, the president is getting a phone call from Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld updating him on military developments. Close aides say his schedule remains flexible. One aide saying, quote, "We really can't plan much further than 48 hours out." Tom?
Thanks very much, NBC's Campbell Brown at the White House tonight. Also on NBC Nightly News on the Iraq Watch tonight, anti-war protesters made their voices heard in this country and around the world today at large rallies, including this one in Athens, Greece. Also, the Vatican spoke out strongly again today against Washington, deploring the war and the breakdown of diplomacy. And the Bush administration today approved urgent food and medical supplies for the people of Iraq. The first shipment is expected to begin moving next week. For the latest on the war with Iraq, 24 hours a day, and for a unique perspective, you can take a look at our website, which is msnbc.com. You'll take a close-up look at the city of Baghdad. Up next, the question everyone wants the answer to. Where are Saddam Hussein and his sons tonight? Later, the urgent hunt in the United States for a man the FBI thinks could be a major al-Qaeda terrorist. A major unanswered question tonight. Is Saddam Hussein alive? And if so, where is he? Where are his sons? NBC Chief Foreign Affairs Correspondent Andrea Mitchell joins me now with a hunt for Saddam. Andrea?
Tom, tonight U.S. officials say that the man on Iraqi television probably was Saddam Hussein, but that does not necessarily mean that he survived the attack. A visibly rattled Saddam Hussein, if it is Saddam Hussein, appearing 3 hours after the U.S. hit the fortified compound where the CIA believed he and his 2 sons were staying, along with other top leaders of the regime. NBC News has learned the location the U.S. targeted was the family's residential compound just south of Baghdad. They tracked Saddam there through electronic intercepts. On television afterwards, Saddam looked different, wearing thick glasses.
Glasses generally are seen more as a sign of weakness and not a virile man, and so it's puzzling why that was done last night.
One government theory, Saddam was asleep when the bombs hit and afterwards couldn't find his own reading glasses. But why did the Iraqi leader, who usually reads smoothly off a teleprompter, speak haltingly from notes? Amir Tahiri has interviewed him.
This was something handwritten, if you like, homework book. Whoever wrote it did it under very limited circumstances.
So is this the real Saddam? The U.S. is now using voice print technology to make sure. But could he have pre-taped the message? That's also being studied.
To try to date the tape as well, given that it may have some impact on whether he survived or not.
Although he mentions the date, March 20th, U.S. officials say he may have recorded several versions in preparation for just such an attack. U.S. officials say this case was not disinformation to shake up the regime, like rumors earlier this week that Deputy Prime Minister Tariq Aziz had defected. But it is a technique the U.S. uses to force officials to appear publicly so they can be more easily targeted. Even if the U.S. did not get Saddam, they still hope they got other members of the regime, including Saddam's powerful heir apparent, his son Qusay. Tom?
Thanks very much, NBC's Andrea Mitchell tonight. Still ahead, Americans react to war in Iraq, including the young, who have never been witness to war before. At the same time the war began in Iraq, American soldiers of the 82nd Airborne and other special forces mounted one of the biggest searches in a year for Taliban and al-Qaeda fugitives in Afghanistan, an operation they're calling Valiant Strike. 1,000 troops are participating. The military said the timing was coincidental and denied suggestions the offensive is intended to show the war against Saddam Hussein was not taking away any attention from the war on terror. The hunt for possible al-Qaeda terrorists right here at home took on a new urgency today. The FBI announcing they're looking for a man they worry may be plotting new terrorist attacks in this country. More on that from NBC's Pete Williams.
As the police and National Guard fan out nationwide to protect potential terror targets, the FBI tonight is urgently seeking their help in finding a man believed to be a top al-Qaeda operative who could be in the U.S. He's identified as Adnan G. El Shukrit Juma, 27 years old, around 5.5 feet tall, speaks fluent English, and asthmatic, he uses an inhaler. Investigators believe he's another Mohammed Atta, the key planner in the 9/11 attacks. And even more worrisome, he's believed to be a trained pilot. One of his Arabic nicknames is Jafar the Pilot. FBI agents today searched this house in Miramar, Florida, Shukrit Juma's last known address, questioning his parents. Agents believe he was in the United States after 9/11, but they don't know where he is now. His brother, Nidal, says Shukrit Juma is no terrorist.
Is he a pilot?
No.
No? Did he go to flight school here? No.
Even so, captured al-Qaeda members have told U.S. interrogators that Shukrit Juma would be central to the planning for any further terror attacks against Americans, either here or overseas. In Arizona, meantime, extra security was deployed to the Palo Verde power plant near Phoenix, the nation's largest nuclear generator, a response officials say to a specific threat.
It was obviously serious enough and deemed to be credible enough that we've got several the appropriate federal agencies investigating.
Tonight, officials say that threat now appears less credible. In the Northeast today, police and National Guardsmen from 3 states rode commuter trains and subways into New York, concerned that mass transit could be a target.
We have close to 4,000 New York State National Guard troops deployed everywhere from the subways of New York to the borders of Canada.
In Los Angeles, Mayor James Hahn inspected the city's water supply, where testing and security are both up.
Hundreds of tests being performed, make sure that if anything does contaminate the water supply, we know about it instantly.
That was the south side of 108.
Washington, D.C. put its police officers on 12-hour shifts, and signs went up from Homeland Security with a number to use for calling in tips. And nationwide, extra security was especially visible at airports. Traffic backed up for half an hour this morning at Seattle-Tacoma as the National Guard searched cars. Cities and states determined to prevent acts of terror. Pete Williams, NBC News, Washington.
Also today, an alarming report from France. The French Interior Ministry says that traces of the deadly poison ricin have been found in the Gare de Lyon railway station in Paris, one of the major rail stations in that city. Railroad workers discovered 2 small flasks of ricin on Monday in luggage that was being stored at the station. In January, you may remember, British police arrested several people in connection with the discovery of ricin in a North London apartment. I'll be right back with reaction in America to America waging war. As the war got underway in Iraq today, this country went about its business, but not as usual. However Americans may feel about the war, they were following it and worrying. Here's NBC's Roger O'Neill.
Can I gladly stand up
It was a message for the troops from 3rd and 4th graders.
And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free.
Their school, Del Rio Elementary in Oceanside, is next to the California Marine Base Camp Pendleton. So many of the children were talking to their moms and dads who are now fighting.
I hope that you can hear me now, Papa. I love you. God bless America.
The LA Daily News printed "First Strike." Other newspapers said "War, an attack." But the New York Daily News declared, "Good morning, Baghdad." At the Coral Cafe in Burbank, Art Michener tried to digest the first news with a plate of eggs and hash browns.
It's going to be a long haul. It's going to be fighting an enemy that you don't see.
Despite the war's start, America looked pretty normal this morning. Freeway backups, cappuccinos and lattes, even the men's national basketball tournament started on time.
This is for the lead.
There were anti-war demonstrations on several college campuses, but nothing major. Steve Jones worries most about what's next.
It's a tough call. It's a tough call. I'm worried this is going to escalate to World War III.
But Steve Tzingula remembers living in Hungary, the tyrant in 1944, Hitler.
We're spoiled, and most of us really haven't had to live under that kind of thing.
The reason these 3 military wives at Fort Stewart in Georgia say their husbands joined the 3rd Infantry, to protect America.
Last night was rough. I cried and I prayed, and I'm hoping that the country will get behind the troops.
Who are also moms and dads.
Who's that?
My dad.
Roger O'Neill, NBC News, Los Angeles.
Who's that?
That's the latest for now. Some of you will be leaving us now. Others will be back for more of this special expanded edition of NBC Nightly News.
Target Iraq. From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Welcome back to this expanded edition of NBC Nightly News on the night that Operation Iraqi Freedom is unfolding fast in the air and on the ground. A quick look now at the latest reports. There are reports tonight of secret talks between U.S. officials and members of Saddam Hussein's elite Republican Guard about possible surrender terms. This as the ground war got underway after a barrage of heavy artillery fire, U.S. and British forces poured over the border with Kuwait into Iraq. And in Baghdad, a second night of Tomahawk cruise missile strikes left at least 4 targets in flames in the Iraqi capital city, including one of Saddam Hussein's presidential palaces, some of his offices as well. In Kuwait, air raid sirens have been piercing the night again and again. NBC's Brian Williams now joins me from the capital, Kuwait City. Brian?
Tom, good evening. We just had these gas masks on in the last hour and heard the concussions when the last 2 missiles fell. Maybe it was the assurances of the American commanders in the weeks preceding that the Patriot missiles would be a shield over Kuwait. Well, those assurances disappeared with the sight of the first missiles coming over the border toward us here in Kuwait. American and British troops in the desert running for cover. Come on! Afraid of being caught in a gas attack after the siren rang out, signaling Iraqi missiles had been launched at Kuwait.
I don't know how close they were, and I don't know what they were, but the call came to gas up.
Just miles away here in Kuwait City, panic as the sirens wailed for the first time, warning of an attack from Iraq. Those who had them crammed their faces into gas masks, and those who didn't fled to bomb shelters and their homes, leaving the city streets deserted. Armored cars with special sensors swept the city, sniffing for nuclear, biological, and chemical materials.
Everything is returning to normal, so please go about your normal business.
No Iraqi missiles hit the city, but it was hard to get back to normal business here. The airport was overwhelmed. India and Pakistan put on special flights to evacuate their own citizens. This woman was booking her children out on whatever flight she could find.
I don't want my children to feel these sounds and to hear these sounds of sounds of war. I don't want them to make them afraid.
We still having.
But Dr. Hamad al-Hassawi, defense advisor to the Kuwaiti government, says the people here aren't just afraid of Iraq attacking them with missiles.
Kuwaitis never had the experience, the intensive experience of dealing with casualties on a large scale.
And tonight, as Kuwaitis watched live television pictures of the U.S. attack on neighboring Iraq, foreign workers here tried to grab the last plane tickets out of Kuwait as the airspace is shut down. They may not believe that much anymore here in the Patriot missiles, but Kuwaitis believe they were lucky today. Sadly, the unease might just return here tomorrow. Tom?
Thanks very much, NBC's Brian Williams tonight in Kuwait City. For another first-hand view of the fierce fighting along the Iraqi-Kuwaiti border, we hear now from Dexter Filkins. He's the Istanbul bureau chief for the New York Times. He has seen his share of battle, but today, he says, was extraordinary. Tonight, his account in his own words.
I'm with a photographer and another journalist, and we're on our own, and we're on the border here, and we're going to go in by ourselves. We've just been witnessing the most extraordinary bombardment from artillery and from the air. It sounds like a terrible thunderstorm, and it feels like an earthquake. We saw tanks today, and troop carriers and troops going across. Apache helicopters came over. More trucks on the way, so they're just pouring over right now. I think it's mostly artillery, and I was in Afghanistan for the war there, and I have to say that this makes Afghanistan seem almost like a tea party. The amount of firing that's going on here just exceeds that by an order of magnitude. It's just extraordinary. From what I could tell, they were U.S. Marines and British forces, and I think those are the units that are going to make a run for Basra, which is Iraq's second city, and it's not terribly far from here. It's only about an hour's drive by car straight up the highway. The tanks were just rolling through the border post. I haven't seen the cruise missiles, but I have to say that the number of different sounds, whether it's an explosion or something that sounds like a missile going overhead, or the rattle of machine gun fire. It's a symphony of various sounds, and I think each different sound represents a different, a bomb or a missile or a bullet going by.
Dexter Filkins of the New York Times tonight, reporting from the front lines in his own words. And joining me once again tonight with his insights on the United States military strategy is retired Army General Montgomery Meigs, who was leading an armored assault during Operation Desert Storm. Let's begin where Mr. Filkins left off. We know where that is, down in the south there. That really was the beginning of the ground war. A lot of artillery barrage and probably some cruise missiles as well.
That's right. If we go to the map of southern Iraq, we'll walk through that and we'll sort of show for the viewers here what that's going to look like. Moving right past the Baghdad map, we'll go right into that. What happens at this stage? The artillery barrage occurred at about 8 hours ago. So we've got 8 hours of events from Dexter's first report. And once we get so that we can show you that, we'll go into some detail. But now what's happening is you're prying holes in the area. You're going to this location here where the Marines were. You're going to use helicopters, artillery, get in there, take the city. Then you're going to try to get up into Basra. Now, what is probably going on in the other sector, you're having the same kind of activity to open a hole. The attack helicopters will go deep. You're after enemy artillery, enemy command and control. You're trying to take all of that stuff out so that when you push the mailed fist through there, we're not sure where that's going to go yet. it's a lot more easygoing, and they can move out at this general speed of about 40 to 50 miles every 3 hours. And once that gets rolling, that's your exploitation force, and that can really move. Now, this is going to be a little heavy going in here because of the wet. Basra is clearly a good intermediate objective to grab right off.
General, let's go back to that map of Baghdad that we began with.
Okay.
Because that's where we saw a lot of strikes today.
Right.
What does that do for those forces that are moving up from the south to hit those leadership positions in the city of Baghdad? And we're going to see that in just a moment.
Right. We're going to zoom in here. Now, you'll notice that the targets we show here represent individual spots. And let's put some nominal things out here. Let's say that these dots that I've put here are your intel sites, Special Republican Guards headquarters, Special Security Organization. You take those all out at the same time, you get a bunch of different things working for you. You disable his ability to defend Baghdad. You send a message to the locals that, hey, look at what they're taking down and the lights and the plumbing are still on. And you disrupt the infrastructure of his command and control system. Even though the rats are out scurrying around, you're going to have to find them later. Tom.
Were you surprised to hear tonight that there are secret talks going on between U.S. officials and members of the Republican Guard?
I was a little surprised, and I'm certainly glad to hear it.
Okay. All right, let's talk now about what happens with the tank battle. We've got the tanks and the Bradley fighting vehicles coming up toward Baghdad from the south. When you were fighting 12 years ago, you could see what? 1 kilometer out?
You can generally see out about 2.5 kilometers depending on the terrain. And here I'll take you to what an actual tank battle looks for. Basically, you've got some scouts out, you're feeling your way around, you're maneuvering through the desert, you'll start to get hot spots, and then the fire will start to pick up, and all of a sudden you're in a pretty close knife fight. And we actually have if we can pull it up, we have a photograph of what that looks like.
We just showed it on the air.
Super. And then, and it goes very, very quickly. A brigade, a Republican Guards brigade can go down in 18 to 25 minutes and it's finished.
All right, thanks very much, General Monty Miggs tonight, who was in a very pitched tank fight 12 years ago and now is an NBC News consultant. By the way, the Arab television network Al Jazeera broadcast pictures tonight of what the Iraqis are claiming are civilians wounded in the first U.S. missile attacks in Baghdad. There has been no independent confirmation of that claim. However, you heard Peter Arnett say earlier that they were not taken to this particular hospital. In the Senate today, as expected, it was rally around the flag, with both parties joining to pass resolutions supporting the president and the troops. But as NBC's Nora O'Donnell reports now, the Democrats were demanding answers on cost, especially with the Republicans pushing hard for the president's big tax cuts. Nora?
Tom, tonight Congress is uniting in support to send a message to our troops. But that didn't stop some Democrats from slamming Republicans for trying to quickly pass the president's budget with $700 billion in tax cuts at a time when the costs of war are still unknown.
We're making decisions without having the information. We're being asked to vote on a budget that doesn't even pay for this war. I've never seen such fiscal irresponsibility passed on to the backs of our children. The young people, the 18, 19, 20-year-old soldiers over there fighting for us, they're the ones who are going to pay for this irresponsibility. I find that absolutely unbelievable.
There's nothing for reconstruction. There's nothing for the conflict. There is nothing for any part of it.
Republicans argue it's impossible now to calculate how much the war will cost.
I think it's essential for us to have the folks who are out there fighting the war have the funds to do so, and then when they finish fighting this war, have jobs to come back home to. And we accomplish both, and we will do it over the next 2 weeks.
The White House plans to send up a request for extra money early next week that tonight sources say will reach close to $100 billion. Tom?
Thanks very much, NBC's Nora O'Donnell tonight on Capitol Hill. Within hours of the first cruise missiles slamming into Baghdad, tens of thousands of people who do not support this war were out in the streets around the world making their voices heard. NBC's Dawn Fratangelo is at our listing post in London tonight with more on the growing anti-war and anti-U.S. sentiments overseas.
Pick a corner of the world.
American and British troops get out of Iraq.
And there was likely protest. Very loud. Some very large, anti-war, anti-American protest. In Athens, 100,000 marched. In Tokyo and Brussels, a collective voice rising against U.S. military action in Iraq. Even world leaders joined in, the most defiant, Russian President Vladimir Putin, calling it a mistake and for it to end. In Brussels at the European Union, Britain's Tony Blair and France's Jacques Chirac were together, but with many fences to mend. Earlier, Blair spoke to his country.
I know this course of action has produced deep divisions of opinion in our country. But I know also the British people will now be united.
Al Jazeera, the Arab television network, reported it was Iraqi civilian sites that were attacked last night in Baghdad. And Arab countries were voicing both condemnation for the U.S. and contempt for Saddam Hussein for not stepping aside. Mansour Fahmy in Cairo.
Because the American government has completely proved itself as being arrogant and completely blind to what is really going on and how Arabs, Muslims, Christian Arabs feel.
But in Paris, with overwhelming support for France's hard line against a second UN resolution, a voice of dissent.
What's happening in Iraq is very, it's not democratic, so it's a good decision from the USA.
But why so much opposition to the U.S.? A recent poll by the Pew Research Center shows views of the U.S. and Europe, especially France, Germany, and Italy, have fallen dramatically in the past 3 years.
We are the sole superpower. We're so powerful. That power creates resentment and suspicion.
And another protest here outside Parliament in Great Britain, where half the people in this country oppose this conflict, even though now their own British troops are engaged in war. Dawn Fratangelo, NBC News, London.
Up next, U.S. officials looking for Iraqis in this country. Today, 3 Iraqi diplomats were expelled from the United States, and we get more on that from NBC's Lisa Myers.
At Iraqi diplomatic offices in Washington today, in a back parking lot, bags of shredded documents in a pile of trash as the 3 Iraqi diplomats prepared to leave the country. U.S. officials tell NBC News they were caught conducting surveillance. It's also part of a larger U.S. effort to uproot suspected Iraqi agents, spies posing as diplomats around the world. Law enforcement officials tell NBC News that at least 70 Iraqis in the U.S. are now under surveillance as the FBI searches for possible sleeper cells. What kind of attacks could the Iraqis pull off?
The Iraqi agents that would be resident in the country are capable of conducting assassinations. They could conduct operations using explosives, or they could even use a biologic agent, such as anthrax.
In a confidential message, the FBI has warned that Iraqi sleeper agents, though inconsistently competent, pose a significant threat. That's why FBI agents fanned out around the country today to interview some 11,000 Iraqis, many now American citizens. This woman was recently questioned.
They asked me if I know somebody who is against the United States, against the war.
Some terrorism experts argue the FBI interviews are a deterrent.
You may talk to people who are actually Iraqi agents, and by doing this, you're going to back them off. They're going to think you're on them and may prevent an act.
But many Arab Americans consider it deplorable.
When the FBI knocks on your door, it creates fear. It also creates suspicion among your neighbors.
Another knock on the door may come from U.S. immigration agents who today began arresting Iraqis who have overstayed their visas. Critics call that misguided, arguing these immigrants came here to escape Saddam and are no threat. Lisa Myers, NBC News, Washington.
So ahead here tonight, the markets, the protest, and the pride in small towns watching Operation Iraqi Freedom unfold. As the war in Iraq heats up, there is important news tonight about military justice involving Afghanistan. Today, a U.S. military judge recommended dropping the charges against 2 U.S. pilots involved in a friendly fire bombing near Kandahar. 4 Canadian soldiers were killed in that incident. Many Canadians are outraged by the U.S. handling of the accident. Today's decision still has to be approved higher up by the American Air Force chain of command. In southwest Georgia, recovery efforts are underway tonight after tornadoes ripped through 2 counties early this morning, killing 6 people, injuring more than 100. However, police did manage to find 2 children who were feared missing. The same area was flattened by tornadoes 3 years ago. At that time, 11 people were killed. On Wall Street today, traders observed 2 minutes of silence in honor of our troops overseas and then pushed stocks higher for a 7th straight day, betting on a quick victory in Iraq. The Dow was up 21 points at the end of the day. NASDAQ gained 5 points. But if the message from the financial markets was loud and clear, there were many conflicting voices coming from other corners of America. Here's NBC's Jim Avila.
Across the country, the voice of minority opinion desperate to be heard.
Shame! Shame! Shame!
The largest American demonstration in San Francisco, where protesters blocked traffic.
But I mean, they're blocking us off. I can't even get my truck through.
To a Chicago high school, where students left class to chant.
Bush's war has got to go.
And at the nation's capital, colorful stunts to gain attention when most of the country is focused on a war protesters could not stop.
Don't bomb Iraq. Support our troops. Bring them home now. Don't bomb Iraq.
Among the voices not often heard, Iraqi Americans, some somber and quiet in their support of the U.S. attack. Baby Baghdad, America's largest Iraqi community, more than 100,000, mostly exiles, now living in Detroit and its suburbs.
Good Bush, good America, no good Saddam.
Tonight, those who came to America to escape Saddam, like this tortured man still bearing his scars, are filled with anticipation of a new regime and fear for the safety of relatives left behind.
It hurts me inside, see my own country getting bombed, but he's gonna kill him anyway, so it don't matter. Either they die now or they die later.
When the bombs fell over Baghdad today, Iraqis in Dearborn prayed and turned up the TV.
I hope they kill him, so everybody can be happy, without this regime.
Mohammed is a Gulf War veteran. He fought for Iraq in 1991 and today roots for America.
I was a soldier of Saddam Hussein because over there we have no choice.
Tonight, he fears that more innocent Iraqis will be killed again following Saddam's propaganda.
They tell people over there, American people come to rape your women.
In a country where protest is not allowed, where demonstrations like this one would end not with arrest, but death. Jim Avila, NBC News, Chicago.
I'll be right back. By now, everyone knows this is by no means a universally popular war. Support for the president's decision to strike without UN authority went over 50% just in the last week or so. But in many communities, it is much higher. Those with strong ties to the military. Tonight, NBC's Bob Faw, the latest in our series of how American towns are dealing with the war.
In Shalimar, Florida, the young ladies at Choctaw High School who are pumping iron reflect a community which very much endorses that surgical strike against Saddam Hussein.
I have no doubts that he is definitely someone that we need to take care of.
On part of the West Florida coast dubbed Redneck Riviera, the food and the opinions are also blood red.
Just go in there and get the job done.
Get it over with, yeah. With 2 large military bases nearby, even at the local Baptist church.
Let's pray.
After the invocation and a fellowship dinner, there's a consensus. Dump Saddam.
I don't see any sentiments at all of we don't need to go, we don't need to be there.
And on assembly lines geared up to support the war effort, this one in Huntsville, Alabama, where they build the Avenger weapon system, there are no illusions.
It has a 97% kill rate, so we know that it'll do what it's designed to do.
Nor is there any second guessing.
When we have to go into those situations, I'd rather let the other guy die for his country and bring our soldiers home.
Yet here, along with all that pride in the advancing troops, some people do have misgivings.
I worry about the kids that are going to go over and fight the war. What cost are we going to have for what payback?
But in this friendly place, birthday greetings posted for each resident, those reservations are being suppressed.
I think that we should do whatever we can to, just better our country. And if it takes a sacrifice of somebody that I love having to go help, then I think it's worth it.
Here, where they don't just flex their muscles, they want to use them.
Ready, go!
Bob Faw, NBC News, Shalimar, Florida.
And I hope you'll join me for a special Dateline tonight at 10/9 Central. We will have continuing coverage on both MSNBC and cable and MSNBC.com. That's Nightly News. I'm Tom Brokaw.